Terry Foster, and I thought I would share how I became an amputee. So I was born in 1969. I was born with PFFD, Proximal Femoral Focal Deficiency. Basically, I was born with one of the more severe forms. I had no femur and my hip was not fully formed. My prosthetic leg actually comes all the way up to here. So you kind of see it sticking out. What happened was I had, a little leg because there was no femur, which the femur, by the way, is right here. And so what they did was they amputated the foot and reconstructed my hip. Then at 18 months, I learned how to walk using a prosthetic leg. The knee didn't bend, it had this leather strap, and so that's how I learned how to walk. So I'm also an identical twin, and no, she was not born with PFFD. That's probably like the most asked question. At 9 months, they amputated the foot, reconstructed the hip. 18 months, I learned how to walk using the prosthesis. So Children's Hospital Los Angeles did the initial amputation, and then Shriners Hospital continued my care until I was 18 years old. I was 5 years old, and I went to Shriners Hospital to have the rod removed from my hip that had been placed when I was 9 months. I was there for 6 months. I did kindergarten in Shriners Hospital. I remember waving to my twin out the window. She never got to come up to the floor that I was staying on. What they did was they removed the rod from my hip, and then I came home in a body cast, so from here to here. And I remember playing crutches, or playing London bridges with my crutches out on the sidewalk. I don't know if my mom knew that. So I remember being at Shriners Hospital and in my bed. This was before my surgery. I was coloring a gumball machine, and I was coloring it, and the Los Angeles Rams came into the hospital, and I remember these big, huge guys all sitting around my bed, and they each signed one of the gumballs on that coloring machine, and I had like a stack of little plastic helmets and all kinds of stuff. When I went into surgery, all of that was stolen, so I don't have it, but I definitely have that memory. That was kind of cool. And then there was another lady, her name was also Teresa, which Teresa is my given name, no age. And she used to braid my hair every day. I had really long hair, and she had really long hair, and she was older. So those are my memories from being in Shriners Hospital. And then came home in the body cast, and there was a bus that would pick me up, and I would go to some school in the valley in my body cast. And so anyway, I remember sliding down the seat and the bus driver yelling at me because I wasn't sitting up. The cast was slippery and on the bus, and anyway, it's funny the things you remember, right? Got regular legs remade every time I grew. They would have to put like a wedge in the ankle just to keep up with my height. And back then, the legs were plaster and they were hard. And we didn't have all this fancy soft stuff on to wear over our stump. It was just that you just went into the hard plaster with a sock. It was like a wool sock that itched. And it didn't wick sweat, so it would like pull at the bottom, and I would have to change my sock, and it would just be this pull. Yeah, I know, more than you want to know, right? I was really, really tough on my legs. And so it was in the first grade, I blew out the knee. I had to walk around with it duct taped because it broke, and I had to wait at school for my mom to come pick me up. Couldn't walk home. And the prosthetist was like, "You are so rough on these legs," that he put this solid steel knee piece in there. In my early teenage years, that's probably when I actually started struggling as an amputee, being different for the first time. Up until then, I didn't care. I did whatever I wanted. I did whatever my sister did. And my dad, he had 3 girls, and we did fishing. We rode horses. We were in a horseback riding group. I was in a mounted drill team. We went fishing, water skiing, camping, hiking, you name it. We did all the things. If there was something that I struggled with, my dad just figured out how to modify so that I could join in. And so that was pretty much my childhood. It was fabulous. I had lots of fun, and I pretty much did everything everybody else did. Even if it meant that I was kind of like clunking along, and I did everything everybody did. So as then in a teenager, it was high school, and you know, those hormones and the kids start to tease you. And that's when it first started bothering me. I really struggled. My body shape was changing. It changed my prosthetic style. So there was a new style out where you got like a foam liner, and then there was a foam covering, which, you know, aesthetically looked really cool. But so I went through a few years of really struggling and gaining weight because I couldn't walk. It hurt. And those years were very hard on me. I saved money, I leased a horse, and that kind of turned things around for me, and changing my attitude about life and coming out of that angry teenage stage. Sorry, Mom and Dad. I was a handful. I met my first husband. He was in the Seabees, in the Navy Seabees. We ended up moving to Japan. He got stationed there. And that's where my first daughter was born, on Atsugi Naval Air Force Base in Japan is where we were stationed. I had her in Yokosuka Naval Hospital, and I loved Japan. Divorced and my first husband, and came home, and so I was a single mom for many, many years, and worked in Century City and Beverly Hills. I had a great job. Daughter was thriving, amazing, and then I met my now husband. And we got pregnant, and we blended our family. So we had Sarah, and we had 3 teenagers and a toddler. But during that pregnancy with Sarah, I started to have low back pain for the first time. My entire pregnancy, I walked every day. I maintained my weight really well. I felt great. I had an easy birth, labor, everything, you know, no problem. I started having that low back pain that I started having during pregnancy just kept getting worse and worse. And then I started having that sciatica pain. And that's nerve pain that goes down your leg. And I had it all the way into my big toe. So I was still working in Century City, and I had to quit working because I was just in too much pain. Sarah was about 1 year old, and I thought I would go back to work. Well, I never did. I had sciatica nerve pain for 15 years. Next, you know, challenge was to figure out how I was going to live the rest of my life. Being on so many medications and trying just about everything, if I heard about it, I was going to try it. Like gin-soaked raisins. That didn't help the arthritis, but it definitely gave me a little bit of a buzz. So I tried everything. I remember my daughter was 3 years old at her birthday party, and the next day I got in the van and drove to Sedona, and I went and did treatment for 2 weeks. And it was myofascial release with John Barnes. It was on some really strong medications that cause a lot of problems for people. And I just always knew that that wasn't the final answer. I'm just glad that I kind of wanted to keep seeking and figuring this out. The pain management doctor took under an x-ray machine, he took this really long needle and tried to inject my SI joint with a medicine, like a steroid, and he couldn't get it in there. Too riddled with arthritis, and he couldn't get past the arthritis. So I was just diagnosed with SI joint dysfunction. He thought that was probably contributing to the sciatica nerve pain because things were too stuck. Your SI joint, you lose mobility. It's not a very mobile joint, but you definitely lose mobility as you age. And, you know, I was in my 30s, and mine had already gotten stuck. And then all the arthritis on top of that, and scar tissue and everything else. So the only answer was, medically, was pain medication. I kept doing, you know, all the things. During that time, I discovered MELT. The MELT method, I took my first MELT method class. This was a decade ago. And I really liked that. It didn't induce induce more pain. So anything that I did, I was always afraid to aggravate my pain, and it didn't aggravate it. It was easy for me to do. And so I started doing that at home on my own. I took a class through the city. It's like a 6-week class, and then I just kept doing it. And I'm still doing it today, obviously, because I'm teaching it. Different things have helped me along the way. My daughter at one point was wearing hearing aids, and she had a lot of ear surgeries, a lot of illness. Her 4th surgery, they were repairing her eardrum, and it was really important that she stayed healthy during her recovery. I had to keep her home for 2 weeks from school. And I was really worried because she was always sick. And I went to, I got invited to an essential oil party, the parties, the classes, and I learned about essential oils. And so that was why I started using essential oils, was for my daughter, because they helped. And a lot less visits to urgent care by just kind of doing things at home, just learning some self-care techniques with the oils. And so that's how I started using them. And then later on, I learned how to use them for myself, for my own physical benefits. I had also, during that time, I had a massage therapist. Her name was Susie, and she was fabulous. She was so good. She just had a lot of training and experience. And she was always trying to help me figure things out. And she gave me the best advice. She said, you need to start a journal. Start writing down everything you do every day so that you can start looking at patterns and start to figure out for yourself what's helping and what's not. That was so empowering because I could see for myself, oh yes, getting my massages and doing this and doing that. Okay, I can see what's helping. And then I could see, when I was starting to feel bad again, and I had a flare. And I could kind of go, okay, wait a minute. I stopped doing my melt for a couple weeks. Oh my gosh, I gotta go back to that. Oh, I stopped using my sacral wedgie. Or I haven't been to the chiropractor in 6 months, which I rarely go. I haven't been in years because I've just learned, at first I needed it a lot. And then as I've done all of these other complementary therapies and self-care techniques, and I don't need so much intervention, which is always my goal. Probably my biggest frustration was being reliant on medication and being reliant on appointments, having to go to these appointments to just barely manage my pain. I mean, it was so frustrating to have to rely on all of these appointments every week, and then still requiring all of this medication, and then still being in pain. I wasn't sleeping. I was crying all the time. I was miserable. I would have to stay in bed for a week. And so now I look at things differently. So for me, success is getting out of bed in the morning, looking forward to teaching a couple melt classes a week and just being around people, being able to walk my dog. I have a brand new grandson, and being able to hold him, and not feel like I need to go lay down. My day consists of taking care of my body, and it doesn't take up my whole day. The best part of it is that if I flare up my pain or I don't feel so good, I'm not sad about it because I know exactly what to do. And all I have to do is just remember that I have the answers, and my body, the dysfunction is there. It's not going to change. There's no cure that's been had for what I have, and I don't need a cure because I have learned how to manage taking care of myself. So that's where I'm at today. And if you're still listening, thanks for listening.